The evidence is that we're all in this room right here, right now, at this moment in time. What you're going to see today, what I have planned to share, are highlights from a video series that I hesitantly began putting on YouTube in the summer of 2017. It's been about almost in the 3 seasons now, but these are the highlights. And this is what I wanted to share because this is where my work or investigation or research into this subject has been focusing on it. It will make sense why in a minute when I kind of get into my story. I think that when it comes to this subject, Earth from space, the reason that it is so personal for me is because when I started looking into this, first of all, this was my stumbling block. Okay? So, real quickly, those of you that have heard my story, very simply, I blame my wife, first of all. She's not here to defend herself. But she came home one evening, we were having dinner, and she said, "Did you know that there are people that think the Earth is flat?" This was October 2016. And I'm not the type of guy that gives kind of a knee-jerk reaction, or I didn't laugh. It was kind of it was shocking to me. And the first thing I thought, this is one thing I do remember from that moment, but the first thing I thought was, how can anybody think that because of the pictures from space? That was my initial reaction. Anybody else have that initial reaction that you remember? Yeah, that's got to be, if not one of the first things that you're going to think of. What about the picture from space? That's what I had to overcome to really start to entertain this thought. So, we chuckled or whatever out loud, and we went on. We didn't have a long conversation about that night. It was a few days later that to start to germinate. And I started going online. And I kind of did what everybody did. Started looking at pictures of Earth from space. And I started noticing things like they all look different. All different colors, constantly different sizes, things like that. Did anybody come across this? Probably one of the first things that you come across, right? Looking at pictures of Earth from space. The first thing I did was want to understand the vernacular that we're using. Well, what is a picture? Well, if you look at the definition of the picture, it is a design or representation made by various means, such as painting, drawing, or photography. A description so vivid or graphic as to suggest a mental image or give an accurate idea of something. Okay, the mental image. That's what this is. I think the images that we are given of the Earth are meant to just create that mental image in our mind, continually being reinforced. So I started Googling. Very simply, this is the Google search for Earth from space. Anybody else done this? Right? Absolutely. Started noticing some very, very weird things. So I started asking people about that. And they said, don't worry, they're just composites. To which I said, well, that's a composite. Those are two real images. You guys see this thing flew around online a couple of years ago, right? That's a composite image. Two photographs combined into one. Does that make it real? Obviously not. There's the information about it. So what I said about doing was to start understanding the history behind these images from the Earth from space. So what I found was that NASA claims that, well, first of all, NASA doesn't even use the word photograph. Does anybody know that? They always use the word image. Okay? And it's only until you look at the mainstream media that it takes, an image from NASA, and they'll use the word photograph. Okay? But NASA itself will not use the word photograph. They will say images. Okay? This is the first photo from space. That's what we're told. October 24th, 1946. It's a black and white image, 65 miles above the Earth, and was a video, it was a motion picture actually, camera aboard a V-2 rocket above White Sands, New Mexico. And the first thing that I thought was, there, making sure it works. There's no curvature. Okay, this is actually space, because they tell us that the boundary between space and Earth is about 62 miles, or 100 kilometers, called the Parnell. Okay? So, even from that height, there was no curvature. This was the second. This is called Earthrise, from August 23rd, 1966. This is claimed to be the first ever image of the entire Earth as seen from lunar orbit. There's a camera on the probe. Okay, this is a famous live Christmas Eve broadcast in 1968, December 24th, from Apollo 8. It's called The Partial Disc. Okay, this was a really big deal. It was a live broadcast. It was on Christmas Eve, and as we get into the analysis that I've kind of done from these images and the ones that are recent, this one, NASA does some callbacks to this one, which will, from the Lunar Reconnaissance orbiter. So I just wanted to mention it. Okay. Does anybody recognize this image? Yeah. That's what it looks like. This is the one that we were given. This is the iconic full disk of the Earth of 1972, Apollo 17. But if I kind of go back there, this is the original. Right? There, that's the original. Okay, it's pretty blurry. So we got this one. There it is. Okay. A little bit of the line. Okay. Sorry. This then is where, if you go and do the research and find out where this photo is online, or this image online, this is where it's stored on the NASA website, the Apollo Image Atlas and Archives, and it has all the details behind it. Now this image, when you do an analysis with a program called Forensically, which we're going to go through quite a bit here, because we're starting to look at some of the more recent ones, even this one has the Photoshop signature on it. Okay, so they took the blurry image that was the original. This is the enhanced version that they gave us, and they added in the they added in a stage of the rocket. They got that from the original as well. Photoshop. And then this is the full color version. This is the one that graced the front of science books and textbooks for 40-something years. Okay? So I just found it very interesting that they got such a blurry image, and then they turned it into this. And this is what they were this is what they showed everybody. This is what they wanted. This is what they wanted us to see. This is what they wanted us to remember. If you look at the original, it's pretty blurry. Thank you. So from this to that, pretty good technology. You know, the original image, but they really got it advanced. Okay. What's the point? Sorry. Yeah, this is what, yeah, in fact, all three astronauts aboard Apollo 17 claimed to have taken this picture. All three of them. But I just found it interesting that, yeah, yeah, look at that. This is what the original image that we were given. But, yeah, that's the point. Doesn't make any sense. All three of them have the Photoshop signature, even back from this time period. Because it has to be. Now, have you guys seen this clip?
In 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Ron Simmons basis. And it had wide appeal too. For example, it ended up as the default background on the iPhone.
I didn't even know in general what I bought an iPhone and turned it on and kind of didn't know how to do it.
This job is
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
a composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
To us, the really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So the lens layer here comes from,
The moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer aboard the camera.
and the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They dashed the clouds for later, went on to the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I call it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-ocean. And then where it's a little bit higher, it's like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are heated on.
It is sort of just, but it's has to be.
Then,
There was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
and then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the spectrometer. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of the water.
Those are pieces, so you can't just slap them all together.
This didn't look realistic. It looked kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of see-through. So I think it can be a lot.
There's artistry to create a new world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it. This sort of jump, but it's has to be. This sort of jump, but it's has to be.
This was called the Blue Marble data set in 2002. And it's going to come up often when we start doing an analysis of the current images that we get. And so what the majority of this presentation is going to focus on is that we have three satellites, mainly 3 or 4 satellites, that are sending us images of the Earth at regular increments, regular bits of time. And we're going to find out that there's going to be a callback to this one. So it gets really interesting. So if you go to the NASA website and you look at Robert Simmons, and you look at his bio, they do like a little Q&A thing. And I thought it was really interesting what his comment was. What is the coolest thing you've ever done as part of your job at Goddard? The last time I went and took a photograph from low Earth orbit that showed the entire hemisphere. One side of the globe was in 72 during Apollo 17. And he goes on to say that by 2002, we had finally had enough data to make a snapshot of the entire Earth. So we did. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface with 4 months of satellite data. Vito Stockley now at the Swiss Federal Office of Meteorology and Climatology did much of this work. And he said, then we wrapped the flat map around the ball. Okay? Now this is the image that was on the iPhone and was, again, the textbooks, science journals, and that sort of thing then after. So this is really the first image that we have, like 43 years later. My part was to integrate the surface clouds and oceans and map people's expectations of how the Earth is in space. All meeting is remarkable. Found another article that Robert Simmons was quoted in, and he says that he readily admits there are numerous fakeries in his image. The atmosphere is a Photoshop blur, some of the clouds are collaged together using Photoshop clone tool to cover gaps in the satellite's coverage. The black area around the Earth is not the void of space. The black area around the Earth is not the void of space. It is simply a background of black color that Simmons placed the Earth on top of. This is standard practice, Simmons says. Most actual photographs of the Earth, including the Apollo images, present the planet on a black background. I started thinking about what is the scientific value of these images if they openly admit that we're just pasting this stuff on black backgrounds. And they're not real photographs. And then you guys can see this, you know, the internet hive mind shoot this blue marble up quickly and started seeing all of the clone clouds that were used. So when I began investigating these images, what I wanted to do was start comparing real images that I had taken and comparing those with the images that we were given by the space agencies. Okay, using 3 forensic tools that you can use online that break down these images. So this is a picture of my son. Does a lot of drama and theater in school. I thought this was a great image to use at getting to understand how these tools work. This is going to make sense in a minute. Because he is lit up with a spotlight. Okay, so we've got light hitting him, he's in a dark area. So we can start analyzing then these images that we get of the Earth from space and trying to use some of these forensic tools to see how they react to these different functions. So there was obviously 2 areas that you want to look at, in my opinion, and that is noise. Okay, so noise is when you're taking a picture with your camera, the dark areas, especially, the camera's trying to interpret the light there or turn that into signals, and it gets kind of scattered. So this is what a noise profile of a photograph would look like. It's very consistent in pattern, and it covers the entire image. Okay, this is using a tool called Forensically, which is free to use. You can find it on Google. You drop an image in, and you use the noise analysis, and you crank it up, and this is what you're going to see. The next area is ambient light. Ambient light is, there it is. Ambient light is the light that's bouncing off of that object, or that's the background light. Light coming in the window here would be considered ambient light. It's the light that exists already. So, in analyzing my own photos that I knew that weren't photoshopped, weren't altered in any way, they were taken straight out of my camera, and starting to investigate how do these images work and react to these forensic tools, and then I'm going to obviously extrapolate from there and take these images that we're given and see how they perform under the same conditions. So I took a picture that I took of the moon. This looked a lot like the moon last night. And then I did the noise analysis. Looks a lot like, the image that I took of my son. Ambient light. Now, this is what I would expect when I see an image of the Earth from space. If this was a real photograph that was snapped and sent back down to Earth, I would expect to see a noise profile that would look like this. I would expect an ambient light profile. You can kind of see how the light is emanating from the object itself. Okay? So here's some of the early images that we got of Earth from space. The first one this is from 1988. It's a NASA asteroid rendezvous craft. There's the noise analysis. Do you see anything fishy there? No noise. It's only over those objects. There's nothing else. The entire area of space is void of anything else. Well, NASA even admits they paste the stuff on black backgrounds. What's the scientific value of it? These aren't photographs. Here's the ambient light. Date of the next one. This is from the European Space Agency, 2003. 8 million kilometers heading to Mars. No noise. No ambient light. Here's a NASA orbiter heading to Mars in 2007. No noise. No ambient light. a Chinese orbiter in 2014 took a picture of the dark side of the moon for us. No noise, no ambient light. Now this one I just included because I remember when I was doing pictures of Earth from space, which is what my research was, this one came up. This one was fascinating to me. It's called the pale blue dot. And it was, we're told, taken from a distance of the Earth from 3.7 billion miles. Billion miles. I didn't even understand how far that was until I started looking into this stuff. 1,000 seconds is 17 minutes. 1 million seconds is 12 days. You know how many 1 billion seconds it would take to expire? 31.7 years. 1 trillion seconds is 37,000 years. Okay? And this picture was taken from 3.7 billion miles away. That's like 6 trillion miles or something like that. Or 6 trillion miles is 1 light year. So, finally, 43 years after this image that we got from Apollo 17, NASA launched the Deep Space Climate Observatory satellite with its EPIC camera, Earth polychromatic imaging camera, and they launched it, and it's, we're told, sitting 1 million miles away between the Earth and the Sun, in this perfect point of gravity, so where it can stay between the Earth and the Sun, and always pointed at the sunlit side of Earth, so that every image that we get is going to be the full Earth disk. And these are the first 2 images that it sent us. It was launched in February 2015, and on July 4th, 2015, it was big news. These are the first 2 images that we received. So, naturally, I had to start doing this analysis, forensic analysis. Look at the noise profile. And the ambient light. Again, these aren't reacting like real photographs. Sorry, my notes are on a separate one here. So then, 2 days later, July 6, 2015, this is what the Earth looks like from 1 million miles away. And the Internet Hive Mind chewed this up really quickly as well. And this area of the image from the EPIC camera from the Discover satellite, if you turn it upside down, does anybody read what it says there? That image is still, you can go onto the EPIC website right now, choose the date, July 6, 2015, and it's sitting there.
It says sex.
It says sex. All right, so then 10 days later, they really started, once they got this thing, in position, they wanted us to think that this thing was going to be providing a lot of insight for us. Who remembers this? This is from the EPIC camera, 1 million miles away from the Earth. There was something like 19 or 20 images that we got that day, and they put them in this nice little cartoon for us because it's an animation, because it's image after image, and they put it together, and this is what you see. You guys see the Clouds movie? Yeah, me either. This was apparently shot over 4 hours. So, maybe the clouds don't move over 4 hours. This one is really, really interesting because I think we caught them with making a big, big mistake here. So there's 2 parts of this website that I was frequenting when I found that this was giving us images started giving us many, many images every day for a while. There's the date section of the website. Does this have a laser pointer? There's a date section right here where you can pick the date. and see what images came in. And they also have this gallery page. So what that July 16, 2015, they called it the Lunar Transit, you can find all of those images on this section too. So the website has these two different sections, which are supposed to be obviously the same images, but they just put them into, you know, that animation for you. So I took those, these was going to be really interesting, because now we have two objects, you know, and this is recent, it's 2015, so let's see if these are really real photographs. That's what I was looking at. So I took the first 7 images, and I started messing around with the levels to see what happened. This blew me away. Obviously, you know, no noise, no ambient light, you know, from that first one. But look what happened when I had the brightness all the way up. You guys know that we have 2 moons. And if you watch it again, watch on the right side, you can see this object appear. I don't know what this, maybe you can't see on the resolution. If you have a really high, turn your brightness up on your screen, in the original you can actually see that other moon. The same shape, the same size, and it's traversing at the same speed as well. I was just left to deduce that it was simply a glitch, you know, in the rendering software, you know, in that layer. It duplicated the image.
It's got a name, not a moon, you know.
What is it called?
Lilith.
Lilith. Why?
It's documented in Raphael's Ephemeris every year. I don't know what it is, but they know it's up there.
They know it's up there.
Raphael's Ephemeris.
Interesting. Thank you. All right, so this then is the next lunar transit. July, let me get the date here. July 5th, 2016. So about a year later, we got another lunar transit image, animation. They fixed the glitch. It didn't happen again. I took 2 random images from the event, and you increase the brightness. They took the second moon out, but they forgot to remove the box around the Earth. You can go there right now today. You can go to this date, July 5th, 2016, download it onto your computer, put it into any photo editing software, and increase the brightness, and you're going to find a box that they've tilted and pasted onto a black background. Again, what's the scientific value of these images if they're going to be doing all this manipulation? Why don't we just give us the photograph if it really is one? Now, that was from one section of the website, okay? This is when you download the images from the date section. But if you go over to the gallery part of the website, from the same event, the same date, and you download the same images, but from a different section on the website, and you do the same analysis, they've removed the box. It's just inconsistencies. Thank you. Just things don't reconcile. That's what I was finding. And then if you drop these into forensically to do the noise analysis, you have noise around all of the objects, okay? So they're getting better. But again, you can see clearly that this is a box pasted onto a black background and tilted. But if you use the gallery section image, you do the same analysis. Again, no noise and no ambient light. Everything will show up. Then the next event, March 9, 2016. This was a solar eclipse. You go to the date section and download some of the images, and no noise and no ambient light. That's what we would expect, right? I mean, this is very consistent. You go to the gallery section and download the same exact images from the same exact date. And I got a box around it, a tilted box. Where's the consistency here? The next set of, where my path kind of led there was going to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which was launched before the Discover satellite. It was launched to the moon, I believe it was in 2009. Here it is. It was supposed to be a 2 to 3 year mission, but it's 10 years ago it was launched, and it's still giving us images now. Really, the first image that NASA played up and made a big deal of was from, was a callback to December 24th, 1968 from that live Christmas Eve broadcast. They said, hey, we now have another Earthrise image. And they gave us this one, Earthrise Reimagined. Big callback to the live Christmas Eve broadcast. Now we've got one, this is from October of 2015. And when you go to the website here on the NASA domain, it talks all about it. And there's 3 images that you can download. But these are the pictures from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And they give you this gallery of images. This is the first of the 3. And it says that we've got the left camera and the right camera, and then we've combined them together to give you the final image. Isn't that nice? Well, the first thing I did, obviously, was download it and drop it into, photo editing software or forensically. And this is what happened. Do you think these are real photographs? They don't react like a real photograph would. The second image, same thing. No surprise there. Then it gets really fun. The last one they give you is this really high, it's a TIFF file, and so it's many, many megabytes. It's really high quality. You can zoom in and see all this detail. It was amazing. When I did the same analysis, this just looks like sloppy work now, okay? They were attempting to remove the box. I don't know, maybe lunchtime came up and the person that was doing it was like, I'll finish this later or whatever. But they tried to remove the box and they got most of the way done, but they didn't. This is like a healing tool in Photoshop or something like that. Anybody that's familiar with that program. I thought that was very, very interesting. And then this is the one that really, really made me scratch my head. So on this, again, you've got these 3 images. You download, this was the second one, and then the next one was this high definition one. You notice any differences between the 2? They photoshopped out the mountain. What's the scientific value of these images if they're going to be making all these changes? What's going on here? All right, let's go to some other space agencies because NASA's not the only one that's messing around. Roscosmos. Catching my notes up here. Roscosmos supposedly has a satellite called the Electro-L that is 22,000 miles above the Earth and is hovering over that side of the planet and is in geosynchronous orbit so that it is always in the same spot. And so it gives us images many every day at these time intervals. And sorry, I hit back too many times. In the FTP folder, which you'll see here when I play a video clip from another section of one of my videos, at the same time every day, when you look at the image from, I think it's 2030, so 10:30 p.m., you have this line going right down the middle of all of the images. when you increase the brightness and use these forensic tools. These are software glitches. Okay, that's what's going on here. These are software glitches. And these are supposedly pictures from space. They're so heavily manipulated. Okay, I want to play a short clip here from some of the other things that I found. And the reason is that when I went to build this presentation and went back to find the electral L images that I had used in previous videos, and they've been removed. From 2016, 2017, those are removed from their website. You can only go back to 2018. So these anomalies that I show here in the video, you can't even find them online anymore.
We're going to navigate through the links to the Electro L2, then 2017, in the month of June, and go to June 20th. We're going to look at the time of 2030 and pull up the quote-unquote original JPEG. And what you'll see here is a very weird anomaly, this fluorescent green line. You can also hit the back button and go to 2000 hours, so 30 minutes before, and see an even larger green anomaly, a green line that looks like multiple lines here. And in the subsequent time folders, you'll sometimes see these weird green smudges all over the disk at various places. This happens, or appears to happen on other days as well, but always when the light is starting to go away or behind the disk as Roscosmos is presenting these images from the Electro L. And all of these anomalies, from the green line, green smudges, and the weird dividing line we showed in part 1, all happen with the night images only. If we put the photo in Photoscape and we use the backlighting feature, we can see the weird dividing line again, which is very strange. You may argue that the weird green line is some sort of glitch when the different channels of the camera are combined. But then you'll have to reconcile why it doesn't happen with every shot, and never during the quote-unquote daytime images, and only when we're seeing the dark side of the disk. The other point I want to make here is that, as you've seen, every single time folder contains 10 files, and then the RGB is the combined one. The other images, JPEG 1, 2, JPEG 3, etc., all have some colors, and some are black and white, and some have clouds. So, if these are all the different channels, how come when they combine all the images, the clouds disappear? Apparently, we can see the clouds all over the dark side of the disk. Each folder contains a few pictures of clouds all over. But when all of the data is combined into one image, the clouds on the dark side disappear. Very strange. And of course, if you put all of these images into forensically, you'll see no noise, no ambient light, meaning they are just pasted onto a fake background, a black background, meant to be the infinite vacuum of space. Extremely weird stuff going on with these images from the Electro L2.
Now we're going to switch over to everybody's favorite, Japanese Space Agency. In the first clip I'm going to play here, and I want you to honestly watch this and tell me if you think this is real. This looks like a video game I was playing as a youngster. People believe this. You put it out there and they're, wow, look at that Earthrise. It just looks like a computer animation to me. But maybe I'm trying to see something that's not there. That's what everybody has to decide for themselves. The Himawari, that's the Japanese. You've probably heard of the Himawari. Again, 22,000 miles above the Earth, hovered right over Japan and taking images. I think we get those every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes. Now, the Japanese Space Agency is getting good, okay? They give us, well, first of all, Himawari means sunflower. That's how it translates. And so if that's not evidence, kind of the heliocentric sun-worshipping model right there, that one that just kind of struck me is very interesting. But check this out. This is what we get from the Himawari. These are all of the images that they give us every 10 or 15 minutes put into an animation. You guys see the clouds moving? Yeah, they're getting good. They're getting a lot better. This is probably, when it comes to pictures of the Earth from space, this is probably what's brought up the most to me. You say, what about the Himawari? Okay, that one's got to be real. Look, the clouds are moving. That look pretty real? To me, I was like, I got to look more into this because they're getting good. There's kind of two ways you can investigate the Himawari. This is from the Japanese Space Agency website, but all of the images they give you have these, obviously they've been manipulated because they're putting in the boundaries of countries and things like that, so you can kind of orient yourself. But there's a back door. The NOAA website receives all of the images, the Himawari daily, and you can see the timestamps there. So these are the images that I pulled from August 18th. In the States, we put the month first, so that's why the dates look a little weird. August 18th this year, and you can download all of these every 10 minutes, and it takes forever for the website to load because of the fact that they just have one folder and all these images are just coming in. So I had to scroll down near the bottom to find the most recent image at the time that I pulled this together. But this is what I found that really got me going. Okay, I'm kind of starting to see how they're doing this thing. In that same folder, they have a text file, a description, site description.txt. And when you read through that, they admit right here, the underlying colored land image is from the NASA Blue Marble Next Generation. You know which one that is? If that doesn't kind of debunk the whole Himawari right there, I don't know what will, because they basically are admitting that the land underneath all of the clouds are from the Blue Marble data set that they put together in 2002. Okay, so how they do in the clouds? Here's the clip. This is the Blue Marble data set. You can actually go to the Blue Marble data set website page and download all of the images from there. This is what they look like. And even the Blue Marble, that wasn't like images that we were getting of the Earth. It was data that the satellite supposedly was sending us, and then Rob Simon and his team interpret that and put it into pictures for you. Okay, but these look like real pictures from a satellite. Or cartoons. All right, so this is my theory on how they are simulating, in my opinion, simulating the clouds.
But to move on, and then to just briefly show you how to generate a picture in 10 minutes with what appears to be accurate current weather. This is basically what they do. Now, don't take my word for it, as I always say, go check it out for yourself. Number one, they have already created and stored transparent images of the weather over the oceans using climate simulation software, which they openly admit right here. They've done climate simulations up to the year 2095, but it's actually the year 2100 on this FTP server folder, and here's one of the images. And following some of the other images that you can find where the land masses are transparent, and they use all this simulation software to come up with the weather over the oceans. Since our weather data comes from our ground-based Doppler radar, and it's impossible to use ground-based systems to cover the entire vast oceans. So that's where the weather over the oceans comes from, their software simulations. Number two, now for the weather over the land, the NOAA has supercomputers that take data coming in from all over the world, Doppler radar feeds, and crunch it all together and combine it with the weather simulation data over the oceans. So they come up with a complete composite weather quote-unquote map, which is then wrapped around the ball in their 3D modeling software programs, just like we've shown countless times in our previous episodes with the Earth and the planets, etc. So then what we get are composite images like this that are created in the 3D modeling software, the current Doppler weather data over land and the simulated weather over the oceans, and it looks like this. So this particular image is on the FTP server and is date and time stamped with October 11th, 2017 at 11:05 a.m. I just chose one randomly. Notice the image shows you the weather for the whole ball and not just part of the ball that is lit by the sun at this particular time. No Terminator line or anything like that, right? Okay, now here's the kicker. Go to the other file folder, which is the images that we get to see and are told are real pictures from space. But what they've simply done is taken the weather map picture of the whole ball they created, and they superimpose it over the blue marble data set, just like they said they did. So what you can see here is the final version of what we're spoon-fed and told as a picture taken by the Himawari from space, like, 10 minutes ago. This is the image from the same date and time, October 11th, 2017 at 11:05 a.m. You can see that the weather is exactly the same. Watch it closely. There's your weather map comprised of simulated and Doppler radar being used to complete a composite image. They do this with the Discover satellite too. You have a camera from a million miles away. They tell it's ridiculous. Okay. Now also notice the final image has a terminator line added in to try to make it look like a real picture from space, which drives a nail in the coffin of Himawari because the weather data shows it over the whole ball completely. But they have to have a terminator line to show the Earth only partially lit by the sun based on the time of day that the photo was allegedly taken. So if this is a real picture, how did they know where to put the clouds and weather on the part of the globe with no sunlight? It's completely dark there. It's all right here, guys. They are faking space. Hey, we all fell for it for a long time with their Doppler radar and weather simulation software, building a current weather picture and wrapping it around the ball in 3D software, pasting it onto a black background like we do with all the others, adding a terminator line and calling it a real picture from space.
And then the final kicker, I guess, on the Himawari was taking any of the images that we get every 10 or 15 minutes and dropping them into the forensic software to see how they react, see if they react like a real photograph or something that I had taken with my own camera. And there is the noise. And if we could turn up the brightness on the screen, if we could, what you'll see around these, looks a lot better for the ambient light. You have these jagged edges all the way around. So these things are obviously CGI, computer graphic images that have been pasted onto a black background. And again, what's the scientific value of these images if we find all of this manipulation? That's the question that kind of keeps coming up in my mind. Now we're going to move on to something a lot more recent. The Indian space program, just, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, attempted to land on the moon. And they sent us some images of the Earth from space. This is from their website. You can see that there were 4 images or 5 images there of the Earth. So we went in and downloaded those and checked the noise profile. And looked for ambient light. Pasted onto a black background. I thought it's also interesting when you look at a lot of these, you try to look at the metadata. So if you take your picture with your camera and you drop it into the software here and you look at metadata, it'll tell you the time, date stamp, the camera that was used, the settings and things like that. When you go and look at these images from all these space agencies and you look for the metadata, it's all been removed. So there's no evidence, there's no validation, there's nothing. You can't tell what time it was taken, and that sort of thing. And the same thing with the Indian Space Agency here. They removed all of the metadata so that you could perhaps even look at what time and date, when it was taken and what kind of camera it took, or what kind of camera signature, and things like that. Now, what about the other planets in our solar system? And I kind of had to go there when I'm looking into NASA and that sort of thing, but I get that a lot. Maybe those images are real. You recognize that planet? Anyone? Mars, exactly. About those two? Yep, Neptune and Mercury. That's Venus. And Pluto. Yeah. Those look pretty cool, huh? I made those. And the reason I was able to make those is because you go, again, on the NASA FTP server, they have a folder for every one of the planets. And when I started digging in there, I found flat maps of all planets. So all you got to do is take You know, what's this? This is Mercury. Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune and Uranus, and Pluto. Pluto, what a hack job this thing was. Like they got halfway done, and again, the same guy that was probably trying to remove the box around the Earth, it kind of gets half done or whatever, and it's like, I'm going to head to lunch, and then it doesn't come back. That's the flat map of Pluto. You just simply can take it into Photoshop and wrap it around a sphere at a Terminator line. That's all I had to do to basically make another planet, just like we're shown. Those are the same, you know, you do a search for Mars or whatever, you're going to find those maps. And they're going to be on mainstream media websites saying, here's a picture of Mars from NASA. Okay? Speaking of Pluto, this was a fun one. Some people haven't seen this. Pluto was discovered, we're told, February 18th, 1930. 1930 is also the year that Pluto, the dog, made its first appearance with Disney. And maybe you'll see this, but in case you haven't, what are the chances that Pluto was on Pluto? In fact, the more I dug into Pluto, and looking at some of the images that we were getting from NASA, you know, it kind of has an inferiority or a complex. You know, it's a planet, it's not a planet, it kind of goes back and forth or whatever. There was big news released from NASA July 17, 2015. NASA's New Horizons spacecraft discovered frozen plains in the heart of Pluto's heart. And if you read the article, again, July 17, 2015 is when it was released. And it says that the image was taken July 14th, so 3 days later, you know, they get the picture, put it into photo forensics. The photo was created originally in 2012. I think they're just making it up as they go. This image was created in 2012, but it was the latest data that we had from the New Horizons spacecraft in 2015. Stuff like that. Stuff just doesn't add up. So, my timing's off here. Sorry. The Earth from space. What do you guys think? Do we have real photographs? I would submit that it's computer graphics. And this was really personal for me because of the simple fact that it was the stumbling block that I had to overcome when it comes to this subject. And this is where I spent my time, analyzing these images. I had help along the way. I want to give credit to a gentleman by the name of Archer Sage, who did a lot of this research. We spent a lot of time on the phone going through folder after folder and analyzing images and starting to find these anomalies. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit to the second section of my video series. Perfect, thank you. And I'm going to play a quick clip here to kind of get you in the mood for this next subject. Who remembers that day? Anybody here? Was it a big deal? It was huge. I mean, all the headlines, right? The celebrations. I unfortunately don't remember because I wasn't alive yet, but this was a big deal. But these guys didn't get the memo. And I think and I'm sure most of you have watched the press conference by now, that press conference. If that doesn't just strike you as odd, their behavior, I don't know what will. Okay? Well, let's get into the moon research, the image analysis, and things like that another friend of mine, Scott Henderson, and I have been putting together over the last year. These are some of the highlights. For somebody that maybe is still thinking the moon landings were legit, I think there's some really damaging evidence here that can be shared with them to kind of show that it's unlikely that the images that we got were really shot on the moon. The first thing I want to go over, though, is I want to slap the hand the hands of many people in the community that are propagating some fake news. Okay? Have you guys seen this image and trying to say, hey, look, the boots don't even match up, right? This is Neil Armstrong's complete kit, they say. This is everything that he was wearing when he stepped foot on the moon. And they're saying, look at the footprint and look at the boots, what he was wearing. That doesn't match up. Has anybody seen this? Okay? Well, it's fake news. And I hope people stop spreading this because they told us that they wore these boots that went over those boots that we are shown. They're right there in the picture, and that's where the footprint comes from. Okay, so when I see this thing being spread online, I try and chime in and say, stop spreading that because that's not a good piece of evidence. Okay, so I'm starting to put that in all my presentations to try and get the word out. When I start seeing that public service announcement. This thing really kicked into high gear when the Project Apollo archive was put on the photo sharing site called Flickr. For the first time, we had thousands of high-res images from the Apollo program that the astronauts took themselves. Now, before they were, very low quality, very grainy, things like that. But in 2015, NASA put all of these images on Flickr, and you can also find them on the Apollo journal sites. So this was a kid in a candy store, really getting to look at some of these images because now we had some real high quality, high resolution, and we could magnify things and really study some of the detail. And that's revealed some very, very interesting things. The first thing, though, before we get into the actual images, is doing a little bit of date reconciliation. I think this is pretty damaging evidence. At the beginning of every one of the video sequences that we got from the missions themselves, okay, these are cameras that were put on the lunar lander themselves and the rover, and that were taking video, taking images. At the beginning, and you can find all these on YouTube, and you can find them all on the NASA website, the Apollo Journal site. At the beginning of every mission, they have a color plate. Color plate is used to obviously adjust the colors on your monitor, whatever you're using, to make sure that you have them dialed in correctly. At the beginning of every one of these video series from each of the missions, they have the color plate and they put a date on it. This is from Apollo 11, and the date is July 11, 1969. Does that cause any problems for anybody? The date. Apollo 11 wasn't launched until the 16th of July. They didn't walk on the moon until the 20th of July. But the videos and the pictures that we got from the astronauts themselves were from the 11th of July. You go check out the training calendar for the Apollo astronauts from the NASA press kits that were given months in advance. This is what the astronauts are going to be doing every day leading up to the launch. I was curious, what were they doing on the 11th of July when all these videos and pictures supposedly were captured? They were doing a translunar injection simulation. Okay, let's go to Apollo 12. I want to call out here, first of all, H. Jones is the inspector, okay? Remember that name, it's going to come up a little bit later. This is very interesting. Apollo 12, November 11th, 1969. Are the videos and pictures. What was the launch date? 14th of November. When did they walk on the moon? The 19th. They weren't even on the moon until 8 days after these. And these are sitting here on YouTube. These are on the Apollo Journal site. You click play, you see the color plate, it kind of fizzles out and they start playing. So what were the astronauts doing on the 11th of November? Lunar module simulation and command module simulation. Oh, and H. Jones.
guy's going to get around. Apollo 14, January 25th, 1971 was when the video and the pictures. They launched on the 31st of January and didn't walk on the moon until the 5th of February. Same problems. What were they doing on the 25th of January? According to the training calendar, months in advance. I'm not sure what all those acronyms mean, but again, I do know that CMS and LMS are the command module in the lunar module simulations. There's kind of a pattern that's going on here, right? And here's what I think is going on is that before you go on stage, you do a dress rehearsal, they climbed in, you know, they did everything that they were going to plan to be doing on the moon, and they took the pictures and they did everything as they were supposed to. And then they launched, and then what NASA gave us was all the simulation pictures and video. Apollo 15, July 17th, they didn't launch until the 26th of July, and they weren't on the moon